everyone, it's Mary. Today I thought I'd do a video review of The Princess Bride by William Goldman. I read the 25th anniversary edition, and if you own this particular edition, I would suggest you skip the first introduction, which is the introduction to the 25th anniversary edition. I don't know how you feel about introductions. I really don't read them usually. I like to read them afterwards because I don't want to get anything of the book beforehand. But in this particular case, I would advise you do not read it, just because the first little chunk of the book is kind of an introduction, although is still part of the book. But I feel like it adds too many things to get through before you get to the actual stories. It feels, I think, a little bit too heavy in my opinion, and also the book kind of actually stops here. And the last part is an addition that again was written by the author for this specific edition. So yeah, having said so, let's talk about the book. The book was written in 1973 by William Goldman, and it is a very particular kind of classic because it is very funny and very ironic, and it also is a book within a book. So when you first get to the introduction of the book, it's actually already, the book itself. So the author is a character as well in this book that basically talks about him being a child and not really being into reading. One day he is ill in bed, and his father starts to read a book to him called The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern. And he really gets engaged in the story of the book and wants actually to do the same thing for his own son. Although he is not ill in bed, he really wants his son to be introduced to the world of reading by letting him read that one book that he once fell in love with. So he starts to look for the manuscript and actually gets a copy of it, and the son really doesn't enjoy it and doesn't really want to continue after the first chapter, so he's very disappointed and actually starts rereading himself the book that he never actually read in the first place, because it was always his father reading the book to him. And he actually finds out that the book is way more long and boring than his father made it to be. And he decides that he wants to abridge, I don't know how to pronounce that book, and basically write the whole story, cutting out all the parts that are very descriptive and just go straight to, the plot. So obviously this book is supposed to be very plot driven, which is something that I usually don't really enjoy, because I love, some psychological study of the characters and characters development and such. And I'm not really into action when it comes to books or even movies and every kind of story really. But actually this one was very, very good. I mean, I really hate myself for saying this because I wouldn't actually agree with, leaving out all the boring parts. I love things as, The Lord of the Rings that, can be a little bit boring, a lot of descriptions and, world building. Even Outlander that I'm reading right now is just full of descriptions and details, but I thought this was made so well as a parody that was forgiven. And I have to say, in his defense, the character development was amazing and the characters were very well fleshed out and very interesting to read about. I read this one at the beginning of the month, but I still have all the characters with me. They really stick to you, I think. It was written in a very clever way. I also laughed out loud in multiple parts of this book. It was just so funny. And I had never watched the film before. I did watch the film after reading the book, and again, it's very hilarious as the book is. Also, another thing that I personally enjoyed, and a lot of people seem to really do not like, that William Goldman, the character, actually jumps in throughout the story, The Princess Bride, because he actually interrupts the story to just comment on the story. And I actually thought it was, part of the book. I didn't personally find it annoying. I think it's the whole point of the book is that, you have to be reminded that it is a book within a book. So yeah, I really didn't mind his interruption. The only thing well, this book was not perfect. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. And I actually wondered whether to give it 3 stars because the main problem with this book is actually the protagonist. That is not the author himself, of course, but the protagonist of The Princess Bride, the actual story that we're talking about. She is a girl, and she is, you know, the typical silly damsel in distress that you would find in such stories. So I believe that she was overly done, as a lot of characters are in this book, but I don't want to say that she was annoying, but she was very stupid, and sometimes I thought she could have been more clever and it would have been like really more enjoyable. If you're looking for a kick-ass female protagonist, you won't get this from this book, so you'll be warned that she is very silly. And even though I really enjoyed the part in which, for example, falls in love, and she's 17, so I believe, you know, all of us had their own silly stage, you know, at that age, and that one was really fun to read. But you know, throughout the book she really doesn't develop that much of a character, in my opinion, and she could have. So like some parts of the book, even the male protagonist tells her some things that are just, yeah, really depressing to hear. Like, yeah, just do that. Don't you understand that you have to do that? And she's like, oh yes, I will do this. And yeah, no. I think if she was a little bit more, you know, kick-ass, this book would have been amazing. But unfortunately, she's not. So I couldn't give it 5 stars. Overall, I would suggest you read this one if you want a very easy read and hilarious read as well. If you want to, you know, have a laugh. I really laughed a lot reading this book, and it was also a quick read. So I would definitely suggest you picking this one up. And yeah, please let me know if you actually read this book and what you thought of it. And yeah, we can start a discussion in the comments. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye!